Fists together, I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Pull your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sonia Whitaker, and thank you so very much for tuning in to this Saturday morning forum. We have so much content prepared to deliver to you today, and we're so glad that you're here. We want to start out by thanking the Impact Network for bringing you to us. And speaking of you, we recognize that we have many viewers, not just through Impact Network, but also through YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook Live now, be sure to like our page. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're going to ask that you subscribe to our channel so that you can get information that we're putting out right on the spot. We want to make sure that we invite you to all of the amazing events that we have being hosted by Rainbow Push and Push Excel. The first event will be held next week on May 17th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. It is the next event in Push Excel's Critical Thinking series entitled Redefining America's Education Agenda. And this particular event is focused on the fact that we are now approaching another anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. The very next night, we want you to join us for our Push Tech Conference, which we will be focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion related initiatives in the tech industry. And whatever you do, please don't forget to mark your calendar and participate in our annual convention. And we're very excited to announce that this year's convention will be taking place in June, and it will take place in person. And so in order to participate, all that we ask you to do is to visit us at rainbowpush.org and reserve your spot. Coming up, we have Bishop Grant, who's going to bring you Action in the Field, and Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, who's going to bring you an update with Due Process. And I'll be back with Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, and we're going to bring you information on Spotlight in Education. And speaking of you, we absolutely cannot do this without you. The push is on. We'd like you to consider donating your financial resources, and you can do so in one of several ways by visiting us at rainbowpush.org and clicking on the donate button. You may also text the word push to 41444. Again, you can text push to 41444. And also, you can take your phone and just simply take a picture of the QR code that is made available on your screen right now and donate right on the spot. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Keep hope alive.
Hey everybody, Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr. here from the West Coast, Silicon Valley, Bay Area. All of the work that God has given us to do under the leadership of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Listen, it's time for you to pause for a minute and get with us, because the 7th annual Push Tech Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference is coming. And I need you to register right now. Stop what you're doing, go to our page, make sure you register, and make sure you follow us on our brand new social media pages, RPC Push Tech, on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you pass this on to your network. There's going to be so much information about our certification programs, our job training programs, opportunities in digital expansion for minority businesses. Whatever your flow is, whatever your like is, whatever your passion is, we got you. Young folks, we got you. Job seekers, we got you. Technology gurus, we got you. Folks that just like to hang out in the metaverse, we got you. A whole new flow of experiences for everybody that's going to come to the Push Tech Conference. We're going to be walking through the White House with President Obama, virtually. We're going to have insights given to us from Angela Rye and Congresswoman Barbara Lee. We're going to be honoring some phenomenal technology leaders and industry leaders. We're going to be doing NFTs, NIL, the whole 9 yards, but you got to be there. Get your ticket to Opportunity. Make sure that you're following us on our new RPC Push Tech pages. Make sure you hashtag out diversity and inclusion, hashtag Push Tech 22, hashtag Jesse Jackson, hashtag Rainbow Push. But most of all, get with us. Make sure you're there in our virtual experience like no other. Our Push Tech Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference, May 18th and 19th. See you there.
I'm here with Kathy Kinney from the League of Women Voters. She really is focused on voter services for the Illinois League of Women Voters. It's a very powerful organization. It's over 100 years old. And we wanted Kathy to come and share with us the voter guide today. We're getting ready for the election. It's June 28th in Illinois, right?
That's right, Reverend. So League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan civic organization that has been defending democracy and empowering voters for over 100 years, as you said. And one of the ways we empower voters is we have a Illinois voter guide. And that is a one-stop shop for all of your voter needs.
So now what's in the voter guide this year?
So a new feature of the voter guide is you'll be able to find your new district.
That's important. Many of you don't know, our Illinois legislative districts have changed. Our Illinois United States representative districts have changed. Our Senate districts have changed, as well as our aldermanic districts are changing.
Yes, that's just been settled. So other things you might find in the Illinois voter guide is year-round you can register to vote or check your voter registration. You can find those new districts. And then during election season, you can go in and apply for a vote-by-mail ballot. You can...
This is on your website?
Yes. So at illinoisvoterguide.org.
illinoisvoterguide.org, and we're going to show, it's going to be on the screen so you can see it.
Yes.
So you just go to that website, and will I know about the candidates?
Yes, so during the election season, shortly after early voting starts, there'll be candidate information about the candidate, their issue stances, their background, endorsements.
All of that?
Yes, and oftentimes for a candidate, there'll be their responses to our questions, as well as a league-generated candidate forum.
So here's the thing. I know you're wondering, who am I going to vote for in some of the congressional races? The one that, in my congressional district, we have like 16 candidates. And so it'll be great to have a background on each of the candidates. So you can go to the illinoisvoterguide.org and find out about each of the congressional candidates and other offices to be elected.
Correct. So if a candidate makes available publicly their information either on a website or a Twitter or a Facebook page, we can gather that information and include it in our guide. We're also including judicial evaluations,
Really?
which is one of the things, especially in Chicago, where voters need some guidance. So when you put your address into our guide, it will pop up your specific ballot. And you'll be able to go and through that. And
so I could do a sample ballot from your voter guide.
Yes. So we're in the primaries now, so you'll have to pick whether you want the Republican side or the Democratic side, and that will pop up your. And then when we go into the general, both of them will be merged together, so you will find your ballot.
Who helps you put together the voter guide?
So we have a vendor who does all of that work for us, does all of the research process. They're very careful on how they research and gathers all of the candidate information for the entire state. We're considered the equity voter guide, so anyone in Illinois can go to our guide and find their ballot. Every voter is able to use it, and every candidate can be on it. So it's truly an equity guide.
Well, that's really, really, really good.
Our leagues are working on their candidate forums, everything from the Supreme Court, and 2nd District, which is coming up, congressional candidate campaigns and forums, as well as legislative.
So you're doing a congressional forum?
League of Women Voters of Illinois is 100% nonpartisan, so we don't endorse candidates or parties, but we are planning the first. I think it'll be early June. It's a lot to plan because there are so many candidates.
We want to help you with the first. We're concerned about the first. And
Yeah.
we're nonpartisan.
You can help us by letting everyone know. We'll have on our website a registration link for that. If it's in person, then we'll have information about where it is, so you can attend.
Well, who's going to moderate?
League of Women Voters trains moderators. We have over 100 trained moderators, and they are independent, nonpartisan, and so it will be of our choosing.
Multicultural?
Multicultural, I hope so, yeah.
Okay, just
Yeah.
want to make sure. So if you want to go to the first congressional district candidate forum that they're sponsoring, they usually have great forums, they ask great questions, and you get a sense of the candidates. And then you have a voter guide for every other office, because we have a lot of offices. It's going to be a long ballot.
Correct. So it's typically right now county and above. So you should be able to go in and find your Cook County commissioner, or if you're in another county, your county board candidates, as well as your state Senate and legislative reps, your congressional candidates. We're going to have 2 Supreme Court races this year, which is highly unusual.
Really?
Yes. There's a vacancy
The 2
in the
seats?
second and the third.
Oh my goodness. So it's a lot to know about. It's a lot of information. That's why this voter guide is important. And where do they go?
IllinoisVoterGuide.org.
IllinoisVoterGuide.org. Start going there now. Register your email so you can get this information. We want to keep you informed, keep you inspired, keep you engaged. And by all means, be prepared to vote. Thank you,
Reverend.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this week's Saturday Morning Forum. You know, there's so much going on in the nation and around the world. The fight for civil rights and social justice is arguably more important now than it has ever been. And we must come together to make sure that our votes, our voices, and our values are heard. Inflation is eroding what little recovery many families have been able to make since the global pandemic. The efforts to take the country back in time, driven by political cynicism and hostility, has everybody I know on edge. Now's the time for us to come together, to commit to fighting for the protection of our human rights, and to demand fairness in the opportunities and access to the marketplace. That is why you should mark your calendar and make plans now to join us for the Rainbow Push Coalition International Convention, to be held June 18th through 22nd right here in Chicago. We will take a look at diversity, equity, and inclusion in C-suites and boardrooms, as well as develop strategies to continue the fight for voting rights and police reform. It will be a packed 5 days, but you don't want to miss any of it. Go to rainbowpush.org to stay up to date on the convention preparations, the issues that matter to all of us. In a few moments, I will be back with this week's Due Process. I will talk about the ongoing fight to protect voter access, update you on the fight to protect the financial authority of Mason, Tennessee, and efforts to advance environmental justice. There's also a service project that you can be a part of, so get ready to jot down some information and be a part of this campaign of goodwill. Stay tuned for Due Process, and thank you for joining us for the Saturday Morning Forum.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond, and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member, or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving, or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. This week we had a phenomenal gathering of family members who have loved ones incarcerated in corrections institutions across the state of Illinois. Whether you know it or not, since 1970, incarcerations have increased by 500% across the United States. More than 5 million Americans cannot vote because of a previous felony conviction. While we remain 5% of the world's population, we house more Americans in local, state, and federal prisons than any nation on the face of the earth. 1 in 3 black men and 1 in 6 Latin men are expected to be incarcerated at some point in their lifetime. The Illinois Department of Corrections has had a long and egregious history of abuse, atrocities, and inhumane conditions. It has been the will and desire of Reverend Jesse Jackson through our Rainbow Push Human Rights Initiative to address these atrocities and these abuses, and to bring about tangible, visible, actual rehabilitation and transformation.
My name is Adolfo Davis, born in Chicago, but I was raised in the Illinois Department of Correction. I was incarcerated at the age of 14. Excuse me. I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. I spent 29 years in prison, and I was recently released 2 years ago. I spent 7 straight years in segregation. I was a victim of harassment in Menard Correctional Center. I was beaten by the police. When I was in Pontiac, they took me out the yard. They put me in handcuffs, and they pulled my handcuffs like this, so I'm walking on my tippy toes. But I was like, I'm not letting you see me cry. And I kept standing like, y'all gonna do what y'all wanna do to me, you ain't finna break me. So they put me in the cell, and when they left, I just fell on the floor and started crying. My wrist was bleeding because I didn't have people hearing my cries. Didn't nobody hear my cries. Wasn't nobody out here fighting for me. But every day of my life, sitting in that cell in the corner with my sheet in my hand, like, I can't do this. But here I am today. And I couldn't be here, so all praise to the Most High for putting me here for this reason. Y'all not alone. Come out the darkness. We here with you. You, those who have family members in prison, don't be ashamed of them. They need you. Menard Correctional Center is killing people, torturing people, starving them, forcing them to kill themselves because they can't take it. This is not just happening today. This has been happening for a long time. But people seem to forget But today we ain't forgetting. We not stopping. Menard, we coming for you.
My name is Alicia Gill. I'm the older sister of Michael Minifield, R55489. My brother was wrongfully convicted on April 20th, 2009. My brother sent me this picture. He's right-handed. He's right-handed. I didn't pay attention at the time, but I paid attention recently. Because we get mail and throw it to the side. He wrote on here. He had been crying out to help. He had been asking for help. I'm going to his trial. One of the jurors was asleep, y'all. The same judge who sentenced Jason Van Dyke for the historical killing of Laquan McDonald sentenced my brother to 54 years for a crime he didn't commit. I want to tell y'all, I'm not just here for my brother. I'm here for all y'all in here. Because, yes, God said wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, but it ain't about this system of education. It's about the heart. And that's why we all here.
I had a street fight where a guy lost $1 in a hat. I was originally given probation. I was driving without a license and re-sentenced to 7 years and sent to prison. When I was in prison, I got into a fight and I landed in solitary confinement. I could not tolerate solitary confinement and I immediately started deteriorating. But instead of throwing me a rope of hope and pulling me out that ditch, they punished me more. They would give me more solitary confinement, or they would put me on meal loaf, which is an unappetizing diet that looked like feces and tastes like dog food and depleted me of my energy. I became real hostile, real angry. I was trapped in a cell smaller than the size of a parking space. And this lasted for 22 years. It drove me nuts, for a lack of better terms. It caused me to cut my neck, my arms, my legs. I would cut my neck to where blood would gush out my neck like water out of a water fountain. And all they would do is up the ante, would come up with strategic means to punish me. And I came to realize no one could help me. So I turned to God. And I said to God, I asked God not to lighten my load, but to give me the courage to endure. So somehow, some way, I made it out that psychological dark environment. And I made an oath to myself, I'm gonna hit the pavement running, fighting for justice.
I cried myself to sleep last night because I knew I had to be here. Chaz Thrillkill is my baby. He was, and he's still a Marine, a United States Marine. 2011, on his vacation break, he came home to visit his cohorts from Kenwood at Northern. He was at Northern for a whole week. He was at a townhouse that he had been staying with some of his friends, and pre-Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Eve 2011, he was in the basement playing video games by himself. The perpetrator beat his girlfriend up. They were drinking and smoking and knocked her down the stairs. She was unconscious at the doorway of the room where Chaz was. So my son's going up the stairs. He swung at my son and he shot him. He shot him. My son didn't run. He didn't scramble. He got his belongings and walked out like a man. It was self-defense. So Judge Sturkert in DeKalb County Jail, who was notorious for sentencing, but the same year this incident happened with my son, this person, white Caucasian, last name Ball, you may have heard about it. They were looking for this little white girl in the cornfields. He raped her and killed her in the cornfields. Judge Sturkert Gave him 10 years. I can't make that up. Judge Sturkirk, because my son never had a record and was a U.S. Marine, sentenced him to 60 years, but said, I'll give you 30 for self-defense. She charged him with first-degree murder, which we all know is premeditation. That was not the case. He was wrongfully convicted. We're not negating he shot a man. We was on a meeting last Wednesday via Zoom. Last Wednesday was the 3rd of May. This letter right here is the 5th of April. I just got the letter a month later. That's what they're actually doing. They're not sending the mail. So Bishop, I brought the letter. And I'm just gonna read a paragraph and I'm out. He says, it's good to hear you and Sean's voice. It gave me the morale boost I really needed. This is truly the positive movement we need, and it's going to help my case in the long run, you know? Y'all must really love my stanky butt. I still want to see the ad and brochures. Glad many feel Isaiah Kenyatta's family came to support us. We ain't crying wolf. Not all of you know, not all of you know, another inmate died at the hospital because he overdosed on something. Now this was April, so another inmate died at Menard last month, which is failure to protect by the IDOC. They did not see him every 30 minutes, every 30-minute rounds. They advised long-term damage. It wouldn't have happened. But they pulled the plug on him this past weekend. Now, that came up in a question, they pulled the plug. I don't know what that means, but maybe in the sense that they just pulled the plug and let him die. Did not send him to a hospital, did not try to help this man. So the IDOC is gonna get it. Adolfo, aren't they? The IDOC gonna get it. Amen.
Whether it's been Rikers Island in New York or Angola in the South, these patterns and practices must be exposed, and those who exploit the weak, the uninsured, the unemployed, the marginalized must too have their day in court and be held accountable for these human rights atrocities. You know, the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson through our Saturday Morning Forum engages and informs millions across the country, and I want to thank you for being a part of this. You know, recently, we identified 400 buildings here in Cook County that are owned by hedge fund, joint venture capitalists who acquire these properties in shell corporations, and the conditions in which these residents live in are deplorable, despicable, and beneath our ability to provide adequate, safe, secure, and sustained housing. We must expose these bad actors and restore the dignity, as we have done with historically black colleges. We must invest in historically black communities. And so the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson as it relates to housing, as it relates to eradicating homelessness, as it relates to making sure that these bad actors are exposed and their exploitive means and measures are brought to an end. We need your help and we need your support. So go to rainbowpush.org and become a member, or scan that QR code and become a member right now. I want to extend to you my personal invitation for you to be my very special guest at our International New Markets Convention, June 18th to June 22nd here in Chicago. You can go to rainbowpush.org and get more information. But guess what? I don't want you to just meet me there. I want you to beat me there. For every day, every session, every encounter is going to be life-changing as we are keeping hope alive.
We're back to talk to you about Spotlight on Education. I'm joined by Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, and we want to first of all make sure that you mark your calendar for the next event in Push Excel's Critical Thinking series entitled Redefining America's Education Agenda. Our next event will take place virtually on May 17th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And our focus for this event in particular is on the fact, Reverend Jeanette, that we are about to experience the 68th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. Our goal is to really stop and reflect on how far we've come, and more importantly, where do we want to go from here? What's your thoughts about that, Reverend Jeanette?
Well, thank you for letting me join Spotlight on Education. One of the things, as we look at Brown, 68 years later, Brown is a senior citizen. And when you look at what we've accomplished with Brown, we've been able to desegregate schools to some degree. But if you look at cities like Chicago and major cities, and even in the rural areas, we've not desegregated the resources. Most people thought Brown was about integration. The fact of the matter is, Brown was about making sure that every school had the same access to resources as any other school without regard to race or class. So Brown was decided at a time when in many of the black schools, they were separate and unequal. We moved teachers from school to school, but we never desegregated the resources, and that's where we are. 68 years later, we're still fighting to have desegregation of resources. That means school books, textbooks, that means computers. So why should a child in an affluent school district have more technology than a child in a poor neighborhood? How can they compete in the global society? Because when the world looks at America, they don't look at your neighborhood, they look at America as a nation.
You know, and I can appreciate what you're saying about the desegregation of resources. And the reality is most may not recognize that students, they actually know if they're in a school that is not rich in terms of resources because they see it on the internet. They see it on television. What do model schools look like? And so they know if their school does not look ideal, so to speak, physically in terms of the infrastructure, but also in terms of their access to the technological resources. They're aware. So we can't help but to stop and reflect on what does that tell them about the value that society puts on them as human beings and the value that society puts on what we believe is their intellectual potential when we don't provide them with the best resources that they need.
COVID exposed the disparity.
Yes.
You told us some time ago at the beginning of COVID how parents could not do Wi-Fi, could not have their children do Wi-Fi at home because they didn't have Wi-Fi or some didn't have electricity. So they had to sit in the school parking lot to get Wi-Fi for their children. And that's parents that are under-resourced in poor communities. And then you look at the technology, they didn't have it. They just didn't have it. I remember one of the schools in Chicago, their technology lab was a cart. They put the computers on a cart and they went around from classroom to classroom with 3 or 4 computers on a cart. Not a technology room where you could go and do research. The library was not technological. And if you look at many of our public schools, parents, you get on the bus or drive your car to these various schools and you will see schools in your neighborhood do not look like the schools in, if you're in Chicago, Barrington, Neuqua Valley, they don't have the same resources.
Right.
The buildings, the DuSable High School has great history of great leaders graduating from there, same as Phillips. The gymnasium looked like something out of the 1930s.
Yeah, and so that makes me think about what I was sharing earlier relevant to the purpose of our critical thinking series focused on 68 years after Brown versus Board of Education. But the second part of that, which is the where do we go from here? I really think that from a national perspective, that our students would benefit from policies that then would inform practices about what are, at the very least, a minimal level of expectation for what students should be exposed to and or have access to in their school districts, regardless of the color of their skin and regardless of the zip code by which they actually live. Because again, the purpose of Brown versus Board of Education was to not just desegregate, but desegregate for the purpose of ensuring that all students gained equitable access to a quality education.
For example, corporations want to hire people. You were reading an article in Education Week. We talked about it briefly.
Yes.
Today, you can't be prepared for a technological world when you don't know how to use the technology other than to answer the phone and play games. Every corporation now is looking for technologically trained students. So we don't have STEM classes every day in school to teach coding, to teach robotics. That should be a part of the regular curriculum. We don't even have a robust focus on science in elementary schools in poor school districts.
Well, and I think that those school districts that should serve as a spotlight for the nation. I think that that's one of the things we're going to sign off with, is just thinking about making sure that we are able to identify what is working, not just as it relates to policy recommendations, but also what is it working as it relates to what school districts are doing that are successful in exposing children of color and children experiencing the impact of poverty, which include white children, to high quality academic programs focused on curriculum that embraces STEM concepts and the like. And so we don't want to give it all away to you now. We're going to ask you once again to register for our free national virtual conference, which is taking place on May 17th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. And to do so, all you have to do is to visit us at pushexcel.org.
And we're going to be honoring graduates from all over the country on June 18th, right here at Rainbow Push. If your child is graduating from kindergarten, 8th grade, high school, college, we want to recognize them. Grad school, 2-year college, wherever they are achieving, we want to recognize your child at Push, June 18th. If they can't be here, send your picture.
And you know, Reverend Jeanette, there's actually another topic that women are concerned, worried about, and thinking about all over the nation today. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's this whole case of Roe versus Wade. And everybody thinks that this leak of the United States Supreme Court's leak of this opinion is the first time. It happened in Plessy versus Ferguson. They leaked the opinion. I think they were trying to figure out, to check the pulse of the nation. And what they have done is, women today are different than women were when Roe was decided. It is a bigger movement. Younger women are getting engaged. And what does Roe mean? It means that the court is wrestling with whether or not it should eliminate a woman's right to choose whether or not she's going to give birth or not, whether or not a woman can have contraceptives to not get pregnant. It's a lot of things in this opinion. And I think that it also looks at whether the Supreme Court should make this kind of decision for women, or whether it should be legislated. It almost seems that the Supreme Court is trying to shift Roe versus Wade back to the states' rights agenda. I don't think any of us realized when we came out of slavery, it was based on a states' rights agenda that we continue to have these egregious laws where we're not fully citizens, so we can't vote. If you go to jail, you can't vote in most states. You don't get to vote once you've served your time. Roe versus Wade kind of universalized a woman's right to choose. And now this Supreme Court that we now have is saying, we're going to take it back, let the states make decisions. And so you have states like Mississippi, which brought this case up in the first place, deciding, well, they're going to ban contraceptives. How do these men decide to make these decisions when so many of them are not taking care of the children that are born? You know, you say you pro-choice. Why don't you be pro-life after birth so that children are not in a state system where they don't feel loved? Why don't you make sure that every child has a high-quality public education? Why don't you guarantee that free from kindergarten through college? And so this pro-life seems to limit life to some and extinguish it for others. So this case is probably the most far-reaching decision of our lifetime. And the Supreme Court will decide whatever it does. I think women are going to have to organize state by state, because these state legislatures, like Mississippi, like Texas, and others are trying to decide state by state, limiting women's rights in a far-reaching manner. And what is going to happen, you're going to have women going state to state, deciding, trying to see where they can accomplish, make choices, independent choices. And that's going to be a problem. I worry about young girls who have been raped with a decision like this. I worry about women who are victims of domestic violence and who become pregnant. I worry about people who have children who may be born with severe disabilities, may not be able to bring a child. If a woman's life is in jeopardy, what does this mean? There are a lot of questions about this decision, and we're going to be talking more and more about it. This is moving us in a way that the states are going to be making some critical decisions for women and others. If this Supreme Court does this, what are the options? State legislators can make some decisions individually, as state by state. President Biden has an opportunity to do something by executive order. The United States Congress, that's because we have a balance of power, has to decide to weigh in on this abortion issue. And so we'll be looking for women in the Congress and women in the United States Senate to shift the balance of power. You know, we're a country, a democracy with 3 branches of government. The judicial branch is making a decision that will now cause us to look at the legislative and executive branches. We're voting for the legislative branches this term. We have the power to change.
So there you have it. The push is on. We need you. We need you to help support the organization so that we can continue the advocacy efforts that have been put in place by the organization.
I'm Todd Yeary, and this is Due Process. We begin this week with an update on the dispute between the town of Mason, Tennessee, and the state comptroller, Jason Mumpower. The two sides had been entangled in litigation over the comptroller's efforts to take over the town's administrative finances. With the issue moving through the state courts, and with the interest and support of national civil rights organizations, including the Rainbow Push Coalition, the announcement of a resolution to the dispute has been welcomed with cautious optimism. The agreement requires Mason town officials to operate on a balanced budget, address any audit findings, and eliminate improper borrowing from restricted funds. The settlement is widely viewed as a victory for local town officials who argued that the comptroller was acting with racial bias against the majority black town, particularly since the financial issues plaguing the town predated the current administration assuming office. The legal representation for the town was provided by the National Office of the NAACP. In anticipation of the construction of a Ford Motor Company electric vehicle manufacturing plant near the town, the plan allows the town of Mason to position itself for significant economic return from both the construction of the plant and the economic impact that will flow from its operation. Under the agreement, the town of Mason will pay back almost $250,000 to the Water and Sewer Fund within 4 years. The roughly 1,400 resident town will be expected to pay over $5,000 per month to the fund until the debt is repaid. The monthly payment is required before any other expenditures may be made from general funds, and while it appears that protracted litigation has been avoided, we will continue to monitor the interactions between the comptroller's office and the town of Mason to ensure that the town's leadership is given appropriate deference in representing the interests and the needs of the people of Mason. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate has confirmed Dr. Lisa Cook to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors this week, making Dr. Cook the first African-American woman to be a member of the policy panel. The vote was 51-50, with Vice President Kamala Harris breaking the tie. The vote, which was made along party lines, is indicative of the slanted perspectives often given to nominees of color, particularly black women. Many Republicans asserted that Dr. Cook was not qualified for the position despite a stellar and extensive resume and body of work, as well as bipartisan support from economists, bankers, civil rights organizations, and former Fed governors. The partisan refrain is like the arguments made when Justice-designate Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated to the Supreme Court. It is important that we not simply endorse dismissive assertions of qualifications for candidates of color. Not only is Dr. Cook a full professor of economics and international relations at Michigan State University, she holds 2 bachelor's degrees from Spelman College and Oxford University. Yep, that one, in England. And earned her PhD in economics from UC Berkeley. She is taught on the faculty of the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, served as Deputy Director for Africa Research at the Center for International Development at Harvard, and was a National Fellow at Stanford University. She has worked at the White House Council of Economic Advisors under President Obama and has held visiting appointments at the National Bureau of Economic Research and the Federal Reserve Banks of New York, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Philadelphia. These are just a few of the career highlights of Dr. Cook and clearly indicate that she has the expertise of one who is eminently qualified to serve on the Board of Governors of the Fed. We not only applaud Dr. Cook's body of work, but we celebrate the contribution she will bring now to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve as its first ever black woman member. The Washington Post is reporting that the Justice Department is ramping up enforcement of environmental cases that disproportionately harm poor and marginalized communities. The plan includes the creation of an office to coordinate investigations and expand litigation against entities, including companies and local or state governments, that violate federal laws or commit civil violations. Attorney General Merrick Garland, in making the announcement, indicated that this effort is a response to the executive order signed by President Biden shortly after his inauguration that calls for a robust effort to address environmental justice. Part of the strategy includes designating environmental justice coordinators in the U.S. Attorney's offices across the country, as well as providing training and education for staffers. A recent report indicates that 45 million Americans breathe dirtier air because of racial redlining. The policy of racialized restrictions over the many decades has taken on a toll on the quality of life and health in poor communities and communities of color. Many disadvantaged communities live with poor air quality due to smog and other pollutants from motor vehicles and industrial facilities often located in or near these communities. The Justice Department will rescind a Trump administration ban on the use of supplemental projects, which will allow the department to pursue settlements where offending parties will pay for programs and projects that help communities remediate health problems that result from their actions. We will continue to monitor the implementation of this plan and the programs and litigation that may flow from it. The fight for control of the election processes of the states continues. Local and state election officials across the country have been fighting back against efforts in state legislatures to restrict voting access through punitive voting laws. This while some local Republican leaders have replaced members on state and county boards of canvassers who certified the election results from the 2020 presidential race. Michelle Voorhees of Genesee County, Michigan, a Republican, was not renominated to her post as a canvasser in the county because she resisted false allegations of election fraud. And in Colorado, a state court judge has ruled that Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is barred from overseeing elections in her county because she is under indictment for allegedly tampering with voting equipment. A staunch supporter of former President Donald Trump, Peters is running for the Republican nomination for Secretary of State in Colorado. She faces several investigations, including 10 felony and misdemeanor counts from a grand jury indictment that stemmed from a security breach concerning election equipment where she is accused of copying the hard drives from Dominion Voting Systems voting machines. However, Peters is still running for Secretary of State, which in many states is often tasked with the oversight of statewide and federal elections. There are some elections officials who are resisting the trend toward election chaos. Joseph Kirk, the election supervisor in Bartow County, Georgia, pushed back against the state legislature's efforts to restrict voting access. Some of these bills include changes to security protocols for ballots and other voting process intrusions. In Georgia, the bill reference passed the House only to be decimated in a state Senate committee. Similar activities have taken place in Arizona and Missouri, where local election officials have directly confronted state legislatures and their attempts to restrict voter access. In some instances, these local officials have testified in bill hearings on a regular basis in order to oppose these oppressive and regressive laws. And while we know there are literally hundreds of restrictive bills that have been introduced in state legislative sessions, we now know that there are local elections officials who are fighting back against this trend toward further encroaching the right to vote. For many across the country, outrage has been the response to the report out of Liberty County, Georgia, of sheriff's deputies searching the luggage of the Delaware State University women's lacrosse team after the bus they were traveling on was stopped for a traffic violation last month. The bus was stopped on April 20th while traveling on I-95 after a game in Florida. The driver for the historically black college and university sports team was told that he was pulled over just north of Savannah due to a traffic violation for driving in the left lane. After the bus was pulled over, deputies boarded the bus and began to inquire as to whether contraband was being transported and indicated that the luggage compartment of the bus would be searched, including the personal belongings of the team. The deputies who did the search are white, and most of the players on the bus were black. William Bowman, the Liberty County Sheriff, is also black. He has stated that he does not believe any racial profiling took place during the stop. Delaware State University President Tony Allen has vowed to pursue legal and other recourse, and Delaware Governor John Carney and members of the Delaware congressional delegation have expressed outrage at the traffic stop and the search. It is clear that incidents like these make the need for police reform so important. What should have been a traffic ticket at best became an illegal search without justification that has intimidated and traumatized student athletes just trying to get back to their campus. This story and others that we have shared today are clear indicators of why we must continue the fight for civil rights and social justice in America. Finally, we close today with an opportunity to express gestures of goodwill. Retired Sergeant Victor Butler is believed to be the last surviving Tuskegee Airman in Rhode Island. The Red Tails, as they were known, were a regiment of black pilots and airmen that made history during World War II. Their tenacity and battle success helped pave the way for the desegregation of the United States military. Sergeant Butler was a mechanic for the Tuskegee Airmen, working on the famous planes during the age of Jim Crow. After a life of commitment and sacrifice, Sergeant Butler is looking forward to one thing, that is his 100th birthday. Victor Butler will turn 100 on May 21st, and his wish is to receive birthday cards. A simple gesture that has great meaning for a man who has given much and lived well and long. We want to encourage you to join us in the birthday card campaign for Sergeant Victor Butler. You can mail Sergeant Victor Butler a 100th birthday card to the address on your screen. Write it down, get a birthday card, and mail it today. Let's show Sergeant Victor Butler our appreciation and our admiration as we celebrate his life and his service. That is this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary.
Good morning, everyone. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Rainbow Push Coalition Saturday Morning Forum, and I am Tim Lee. Listen, I have a very special announcement for anyone who's graduated from the 8th grade, 12th grade, received an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or any other degree from a higher educational institution. We want to celebrate you at the opening of our International Rainbow Push Coalition Convention starting on June the 18th. On Saturday, June the 18th, from 10 until 12, we are going to have a baccalaureate program that is going to honor any graduates from 2020, 2021, and of course this year, 2022. If that is you, you can register for our convention at www.rainbowpush.org, or you can scan the QR code that's on your screen. We want you to RSVP so you can be treated like the VIP that you are. We're also preparing a special digital presentation for this event. So if you have pictures of you that you have taken for graduation, pictures of you in your cap and gown, or even pictures that you have in your college paraphernalia, we want you to send those pictures to Tim Lee at pushexcel.org. Again, this is a call for pictures that you can send to Tim Lee at pushexcel.org. And for my final announcement, I want to let all graduating high school seniors know that there is a scholarship with your name on it. We are still accepting applications that we want to give you. Go to our website at www.rainbowpush.org. Go to our website for Push Excel and find out how you can apply for a scholarship for college. Our application deadline ends at the end of May, so you still have time. Before I go, I want to let you know that we want you to join the Rainbow Push Coalition at the student rate. That student rate is just $15 a year. If you're interested in doing that, go to our website and sign up today, www.rainbowpush.org. That's my time, friends. I can't wait to see you in June. And let me end the way I always do, and that's with the words of the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. If your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, then you can achieve it. Until next time, I'm Tim Lee.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word push, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775. Or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.